FIGU-ZEITZEICHEN, number 156 on December 2, 2020. Excerpt from the 751st Official Contact Report on Sunday, August 30, 2020, translated with deepl.com. This is an excerpt. It is an unauthorized and an unofficial preliminary English translation and will contain errors.
Look, this is a fax that was beamed to me yesterday, so I asked Enjana to call you. Bernadette has already written something about it, which you can also read. Here you go.
Thank you.
Ptaah starts to reads. Subject, of, and. Date, Sat, the 29th of August 2020, from @hotmail.com to am@figu.org.
I have the address of the friend and send it with the fax. My computer does not work. Hello folks. I have questions and I hope you will answer them because I want to know where I stand with you. Because I read your FIGU-ZEITZEICHEN and also a lot on the internet because of Billy Meyer. So I have already read various things on the internet and also your FIGU-ZEITZEICHEN, and since then I have also looked for other things on the internet about what the FIGU free interest group is and what you are concerned with. I have also read all sorts of things about Billy Meyer, who is the founder of the FIGU Association. So I have found out in what is said about him, and that is not exactly good, especially what his son Methuselah from his father and his divorced wife write and say about him. But also their acquaintances and newspaper writers, who also know him personally and therefore know how Meyer rules and exploits members. That is directly dictatorial. That's why I asked around among my acquaintances and heard from two of them that everything written about the man on the internet by his former wife, by his son and by newspaper writers and others was true. I was told that Meyer was in charge of the FIGU and that he was someone who ruled everything, dictated strict discipline and order and thus ruled over the members like a dictator. Everyone has to submit to his whims and orders and worship him. It is also said that he exploits the members and they have to give their wages and money and he lives on it and thus exploits and benefits everyone. He takes the money from all that is sold with books and the so-called spiritual teachings etc., which he does not have to write anyway, but others, and he then passes it all off as his work. Moreover, the members have to work until they drop, but he makes himself comfortable and does not do anything himself, because he just lies on his lazy scud and enjoys himself. What do the FIGU members say? Are their brains burnt out or frozen? Are they not sane? What is true about this or not? I want an answer in a FIGU time sign to my question. H. Baumann.
Answer from Bernadette Brand. Hinterschmidt-Ruti, the 30th of August 2020.
Dear H. Baumann, thank you very much for your fax with the open questions, which I am happy to answer because I can give my unvarnished opinion and I am very familiar with the FIGU and its structures. My name is Bernadette Brand and I have worked with Billy Meyer for more than 43 years, so I can say that I know him quite well. But I also know his ex-wife and his son Methuselah just as well, with whom I lived under the same roof for about 20 years, as I also know from the newspaper writers, some of whom I had the opportunity to meet personally, as well as other people who are attacking Mr. Meyer today and saying things about him that they either only know from hearsay, and which they are also not in a position to judge, but nevertheless boast about their alleged knowledge. Others, such as his ex-wife and his son Methuselah, feel personally insulted because they were not able to assert their lust for power and dominate the FIGU and its members, because the structures of the FIGU, thanks to Billy's foresight and sense of justice, function on the basis of a true democracy in which all voices have exactly the same weight, Billy Meyer included. In such a structure or in such an association, in which everyone is really equal and on an equal footing, including Billy Meyer, who has neither special rights nor a status of power, people with an air of power and dictatorial approaches and aspirations cannot assert themselves, because they simply run into the void, which then those who call such character weaknesses their own simply cannot cope with, which is why they sooner or later look the other way and turn away bitterly and hatefully. As a founding member of the FIGU, I can say with a clear conscience that none of the things that the opponents, his ex-wife, who left him maliciously and without reason, as well as Methuselah, who was helped out of a self-inflicted predicament by his father more than once, and others who would often enough have real reason to be grateful to Billy, claim are even remotely true. Basically, it is the case that exactly the opposite is true of what his detractors and accusers viciously claim, in the quiet hope that their own low and despicable motives will not come to light in this way, because if there is one thing they know quite well, it is that Billy Mayer always remains silent to all accusations and defamations and does not defend himself against them, as he has done all his life, which he has always done very well. At the end of the day, it has always been proven that the slanderers have finally unmasked themselves and ultimately stood for exactly what they are and always have been, namely, nothing more than characterless and evil liars with whom, in the end, no one wants to have anything to do. The figure would not be what it is today if Mr. Mayer had not put all his labor and everything that was donated and given to him for his own private use into the association and the construction of the Mayer property Hinterschmidruti. He alone has worked and achieved by far more than all the core group members put together, and he has never even remotely exploited or tried to dominate any of the members, because most of the members who have faithfully stood by the association and Billy Mayer to this day have only been able to recognize and learn through him what true freedom really is and means, just as they also learn through him what humanity, friendship and helpfulness and true humanity mean, all high values of which his detractors have not the faintest idea. Even if they claim the opposite, if they had even a glimmer of it, they would shut their unwashed mouths and remain silent. There is absolutely no question of Billy exploiting the members and making them hand over their money, because more than one member has only managed to get rid of their own debts and get on the straight and narrow financially with his help, support and guidance. In principle, all members of FIGU are financially well off and have made provisions for their old age, just as they have often improved their careers considerably only after becoming members of FIGU, with some of them even making remarkable professional careers. Such exceedingly stupid allegations as the one that Billy Mayer is supposed to collect money from books that he did not write himself but had written by others are typical of his ex-wife, and someone who approaches the matter with even a modicum of attention and neutrality and examines both Billy's writings and the FIGU Association with an open mind and without bias quickly realizes that such allegations are in no way conclusive, but that only empty straw is being threshed. Ultimately, I could of course answer all the questions you raise down to the smallest detail and refute and correct all the accusations against Billy Mayer down to the smallest detail. For that I would have to write a multifaceted, thick book, but whether you would then listen to me more than to Billy Mayer's detractors, that remains to be seen, and in my opinion it is not relevant. If you are honestly interested in finding out what is true and what is untrue, then you cannot avoid looking deeper into everything yourself, in order to find out for yourself what is right through direct confrontation. In my opinion, you cannot form a well-founded opinion in the way you are approaching the matter, because in the end it is quite simply a case of testimony against testimony, and in such a case, experience shows that the verdict is not based on the truth, but on one's own convenience and comfort, and these are not criteria that are conducive to finding the truth. In the quiet hope that you will not shy away from the arduous path to the real facts and that you will be unbiased and open-minded enough to examine everything carefully and without bias in order to find an answer that corresponds to the truth, I remain with kind regards, Bernadette Brand.
Exclamation mark.
What do you think now?
I find the content of the lies and slander put forward here as questions to be so foul-mouthed in character and so distinctly miserably uneducated that I can only describe it in several terms as very lowly, dishonorable, degenerately vulgar, pathetic and worthless, as well as obscene, scurrilous and low-minded. Effectively, it brings shame to my face that you are unjustly insulted and defamed in this way, and that you are accused of perniciously degenerated human unworthiness, which is absolutely contrary to your real nature and contrary to your character traits. The whole thing proves the low decency, character, intellect, conscience and nature of those persons who think up and publicize such slander and in their stupidity do not realize that they are thereby degrading, discrediting, vilifying and denigrating themselves and themselves personally. What Bernadette has written in response to these malicious false accusations corresponds to extraordinarily accurate, truthful and indisputable facts, which I will, however, elaborate on a little further in order to clarify her statements a little more. But first I have the following truthful thing to say. As far as your ex-wife is concerned, who has spread untenable lies and slander in the world with regard to your person, your character, your nature, and with regard to your work, your behavior, your attitude in dealing with people, but also with regard to alleged photo falsifications with models etc., as well as other manipulations with regard to photos and films. Her whole of this is so untruthful and defamatory and exactly the opposite of the truth in every respect that it corresponds to an unprecedented disgracefulness such as I could never have imagined. However, the fact that all your lies and defamations prompted experts to check everything extremely carefully at their respective places and on the basis of your picture and film material with regard to your statements, explanations, films and photos, etc., revealed your lies and slanderous intrigue. The clarifications and examinations carried out by experts and the results obtained led to the production of 2 books.
Note the first with the title
Exploring a Real UFO,
published in 2016, and the second,
They Are Here,
German translation in progress, English published in 2020.
Through this research work, the location and place of the respective recordings and also the mass of the jet ships and all other aspects could be expertly measured and clarified extremely precisely. Consequently, through this lengthy research work, your information, photos and films etc. were proven to be truthfully genuine and your information and statements were proven to be truth. But the defamations of your ex-wife were demonstrably uncovered and proven to be lies and slander. However, as far as your younger son is concerned, I must also mention his low and reprehensible actions, because he has also published infamous lies and slander about you, which I have read on the internet. My assumption is that all his lies and slander show a great similarity with those of your ex-wife, but not in the same sense, but related to purely personal malicious lies and defamation. In this respect, my assumption is that the whole of his work of lies and defamation is the result of collaboration with his mother and devious adversaries, as well as by journalists and an employee of the Central Library. His statements of lies as well as those of his mother are so disgusting and reprehensible that I am at a loss for words to describe them. This is especially true because your son ascribes what his mother did to him to you through outrageous lies and slanders you as an incompetent and, in other words, all-round mean, bad and disagreeably indignant and constantly angry father, although the opposite is the truth in every case. That is what I had to say for the time being, concentrated on the essentials. Now, as far as the attacking questions themselves are concerned, which are led by this person H. Bauman, who obviously wants to remain unrecognized and also unfairly does not express whether she is a woman or a man, it is clear from everything that she is not interested in seeking the truth, even though she writes at the end of the letter,
what is true about the matter or not.
According to her explanations, this person is absolutely biased by everything she has heard and read, and is thus believingly caught up in it. Consequently, everything she brings up as questions only corresponds to an appearance, which in reality contradictorily corresponds to an insult, a deliberate insult and insult as well as a deceitful mockery. Consequently, this person will also not bother about the real truth if you comply with her desire and publish a reply, which I cannot stop you from doing. It will also be that she will not contact you any further, because people who behave and act in this way are downright cowards, also in terms of wanting to recognize their own mistakes and apologize. Now I myself do not want to raise my voice about lies and slander and do not want to take any further position on this, but only want to clarify the following for you. Mr. Bauman, what corresponds to the truth and the actual reality, as Bernadette Brand has already described it very precisely, exactly and factually clear, but I want to elaborate a little further on individual aspects of this, because the effect of truth is much more comprehensive than she probably dared to mention, because she probably expects some kind of attack from infamous antagonists one way or another. My dear friend Edward is a man of honor and dignity, and he is neither a profiteer, nor does he live from financial or other means of the association members or from association income, but he is a core group member like all the others and, like them, also makes all his own living, for himself, his companion Eva and his severely handicapped little daughter Selina. Edward does not elevate himself above any of the core group members, any of the passive members or other people. He is always correct and helpful to all members of the FIGU Association and to all people in general, as it were of whatever faith, color, nationality, occupation and social standing. He is neither racist nor hostile towards believers in God, nor towards others, because these are also human beings for him. Consequently he also treats them in the same way as all others and also does not attack their faith, but only the religions, sects and faith in and for itself. If he is against religions and sects and the faith of people spread by them, then this corresponds to nothing other than an evil
thing
that must be fought, because religious faith in deities etc. forces one into a dependency and prevents one from personally understanding and reasoning in every respect, as well as from thinking up decisions, making them and personally implementing them according to one's own will, free of faith, through corresponding actions. So Edward does not work against the God-believing human being, but only against the faith that is enforced by the representatives and advocates of the religions and sects of all unstable human beings through lies and deception, and that prevents any freedom of thought in the human being. And this happens by Edward leading and explaining the indoctrinating religious machinations through enlightening, explaining as well as clear words, which impair the intellect and reason of man to the point of suppression, whereby the human enslaving, human dumbing down and human despising religious machinations make every own thinking and decision impossible. Edward teaches man and denounces the fact that belief in God makes him dependent on an alien and non-existent fantasy power and, through misguidance, makes him a fanatic believer and a pathologically dependent and delusional believer in God. Edward is never dictating in any way, but is humble and always puts himself on an equal footing with all those with whom he also always associates. Consequently he also never elevates himself above another person either mentally, emotionally or in any other way. What is to be done in terms of work, duties or tasks etc., he only brings ideas and suggestions, but the determination of the execution and whether it is done or not, that is determined by the KGGV by unanimity. As I said, in addition to all his various activities and everything and anything that Edward considers his duty, he also takes care of and arranges for all the food, cleaning and hygiene supplies and everything else that needs to be procured, be it for the household or for the entire center operation. Edward is not a profiteer, not even in little things, which is also evident in the way he cleans his eating utensils himself whenever possible, unless other members are working at the washing up trough and take his cutlery etc. from him, for which he then thanks them. He is in no way a power seeker or ruler, just as he is not work shy, but a person who cannot be without working, whereby he knows how to carry out many different tasks with his own labor and all his diverse knowledge and skills, and the fact that, as unbelievable as it may seem, as a one-armed man he often also did earthwork and digging with a heavy pickaxe and shovel and planted trees and bushes with his own hands, that does not testify to a person who makes himself comfortable and does not do manual labor, as your letter claims. For Edward, everything was fundamentally a necessity, which he needed in order to build up the FIGU Center from the ruins of the Hinterschmudruti farm, whereby, as Bernadette Brand has already mentioned in her letter, he provided the bulk of the entire center construction. Bernadette can confirm this, because she has experienced everything from the beginning and has herself worked strictly on everything. Like all the other members of the core group and passive group, Edward not only did the bulk of the work through his many professional skills in various fields and tireless manual work, but also contributed financially to the creation of the FIGU Free Interest Group and the FIGU Center, as well as to all the necessary machinery, tools and various building materials. When a unanimous decision was taken by the entire group to make group membership fees compulsory, this only changed the precarious financial situation to the extent that, from then on, the accrued back payments were paid by the group. From then on, the repayments and interest on the 2 mortgages taken out with the Raiffeisenkasse as well as several loans from core group members for the purchase of the half-destroyed Hinterschmudruti farm could be gradually amortized and repaid, while Edward continued to pay for everything else that was unavoidable in order to build up the FIGU Center. Of course, many of the FIGU members helped, and continue to do so, with all the construction work and later and to this day with the maintenance work, but there were no skilled workers among all the employees in terms of manual dexterity and knowledge. A skilled worker only emerged when Andreas Schubidra joined as a FIGU member and was able to use his learned carpentry skills. To call Edward a profiteer, a ruler or beneficiary or otherwise disparaging is unfair and infamous.
You speak as openly and clearly as Bernadette, and like her, I can only say thank you to you, even though I find that you two make a little more of me than you should. But still, I thank you and Bernadette for your efforts to set the actual facts straight, as they effectively are.
Neither of us said anything that was not true, nor did we reveal too much.